Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about some more luxury food items that you might want to consider adding to your food storage as you are able to do so. And I'm just going to talk about some of the extra things I store up. So especially once you get to that point where you're like, okay, I've got plenty of grains and beans and lentils, and I've dried and canned a whole bunch of fruits and vegetables from my garden. I've got lots of meat in my freezer or canned up. So what's the next step? Well, for us, the next step was starting to kind of invest a little bit here and there in other types of foods that we can add to our food storage that would simply bring joy and add more diversity and flavor to the food storage. And some of the things that people just don't consider is that, we put up food to get us through hard times. Those hard times do not have to be some major grid down event. It could simply be something like a job loss, an accident that prevents us from being able to get work, and so money is tight. So having food storage that we can fall back onto as needed is very beneficial in that way, but it's also great to have for anything. Even if times are good, maybe you have people that just drop in unexpectedly and you were making dinner and, oh, I'm going to go ahead and make more dinner. It's easy to go ahead and grab more out of your pantry and start whipping stuff together. And so I tell you, that's really been a blessing. Like, we did suddenly have a family get together. And it's like, oh, because here's one of the luxury items I hadn't considered talking about, but I actually have a couple of bags here of organic chips that are opened up, because I get these ones I get from Vitacost, and I keep some of these, not a ton, but I keep some of these on hand for when we have sudden family get-togethers. And then I have a lot of homemade home canned salsa that I just pull out of the pantry, and now we have some snacks to go with whatever's going on. And so I like having that kind of stuff on hand for that. But anyway, I want to go into more about some of the things that I've been putting up. The newest one has been macadamia nuts, because I love nuts. I think that nuts and seeds are a really great thing to add to your food storage because of the healthy fat, the nutrients, and the protein that they add to your pantry, especially if you're one that can't or does not eat meat. Then nuts are a good option, but macadamia nuts to me are a luxury food because I can get all kinds of other nuts that are much cheaper than macadamia nuts, but macadamias are my very favorite. So once in a great while, I'll get a bag when I'm doing an order from Costco online. I'll order up a bag and I will vacuum seal most of them up and then put them away in the pantry for long-term storage. And then the rest, whatever's left in the bag, I'll use that for immediate snacking. But something like macadamia nuts can, to me, this is a comfort food. So while I'll probably never store up as much of these as I do peanuts and sunflower seeds and walnuts and pecans and almonds, I do like the idea of having at least some in there. And it also helps prevent food fatigue when you can have all kinds of different flavors that you can work off of. And then here, this is something I've been doing since at least 2014, because I still have a couple jars of this left. And these are organic milk chocolate chips. And I don't make a ton of cookies, but I sure like having these on hand when I do make those cowboy cookies. In fact, this weekend, we're going to our friends who are gluten-free. And so I'm making my gluten-free cowboy cookies, and I've got tons of chocolate chips on hand. But I also have some that I stocked up, I think, in 2020, because I needed to restock my supply. So I vacuum seal, and they're still good, even after all of these years. 9 years now that I've had these stored up in this jar? And then pasta, while I consider pasta a staple, the thing about pasta is you can make that from scratch and it's easy to do. By having different types and shapes on hand for whatever types of meals I want to make, to me that is kind of a luxury. And this brand right here, the Montebello brand, is organic. This is my very favorite brand from Italy. My second favorite is the one you can get on Costco, the organic one. but this is my very favorite. So I get these ones from Vitacost. It's where I can get the best price and where they're the easiest to find. I just wish they carried all the shapes, but I have several different ones. Like this is one of my favorite ones to use for macaroni and cheese. And then I also get the spiral ones and the farfalle. But the other thing I was going to say about having some pasta that's already ready to go on hand is in a pinch, there's going to be, especially during hard times, it's nice to have something that's already ready to go and you don't have to make it from scratch. Now, when it comes to making ravioli, if I ever make it again, I'll probably do a video on it. That I'd still do from scratch, but everything else, it is nice having the packaged up pasta. And by the way, I do have some videos I did a few years ago on making your own homemade pasta. I had one, I think I did fettuccine and spaghetti noodles because I have this really nice stainless steel, you call it the laminator, where you press out the pasta and then you run it through a couple of the different cutters, and one makes fettuccine noodles and one makes spaghetti noodles. And that is really nice to have. I picked it up for $3. It was like brand new at a garage sale. So anyway, I'll link to one of those videos down below. I plan on doing more of those eventually. But anyway, one of the very first things I started stocking up on to just bring joy into our food storage was cacao butter and cacao powder. Now, people sometimes see that wording, how it's spelled, or hear me say it and think, isn't it cocoa butter and cocoa powder? Well, yes, that's what you call it once it's been heated and it's no longer raw. Cacao simply means that it's raw. Anyway, why do I have this? Well, the cacao powder, I use this in making homemade chocolate cream pies. I use this for making homemade chocolate syrup or anything I want to add chocolate flavor to. This also goes in my jet fueled latte blend, which I'll link to that video down below, that can be used as a coffee replacement. And I do sometimes still use it as a coffee replacement. I do switch it up, but for a while it was all I was drinking in the morning and was cutting back on coffee for a time, or cutting out on coffee for a time. And then the two together, I use that to make homemade chocolate, such as peanut butter cups and coconut cream chocolate and raspberry cream chocolate and peppermint patties and more. In fact, I did last year finally take time and typed up all of that into one big recipe with all the different modifications you can make to make it taste how you want it. And I'll put the link to that down below, but I also have several videos out, like on making the raspberry cream, the peppermint patties. And so I'll also link to the playlist where I show how to make all that. And it also includes the chocolate syrup recipe, which is my own personal recipe. Well, so is all the chocolates. Those are all my own recipes there. But yeah, so this was one of the first things, because I can make a really great chocolate out of just 3 ingredients: the cacao butter, the cacao powder, and some organic raisins. And the raisins alone, if you like raisins, add enough sweetness to the chocolate that you don't have to add honey or sugar to it. And then another one I wanted to bring up was anchovies. Now, I know not everybody likes anchovies, and I think I'm the only one in my family that likes anchovies, but I got that from my mom. She loved anchovies. I've loved them from the first time I tasted them as a little kid. And so this is definitely, to me, a luxury item that I might pull out when I make some homemade pizza or whatever. But anyway, just something to consider. They're not cheap, and so I'm not highly stocked on these. This is something that would be just once in a while kind of thing. But here are some other ideas I wanted to throw out. I only brought out a few of the items. Oh, I also brought out these. I get the Yum Earth organic gummies snacks from Amazon through Subscribe and Save. It was the best place. You can get them from Vitacost, but the Amazon buying the big bag like this, they have the best price. Anyway, yeah, they're organic. So I keep these stocked because not only do I actually really love these, the tropical flavored ones, I keep these on hand for my grandbabies. So I am stocking up on those too. So that's definitely a luxury item right there. Some other things I also consider luxury items are since I don't have a freeze dryer, no interest in one, I do buy some freeze-dried goods, specifically things that I can't grow, like bananas, mango, and pineapple. And I get the organic ones now that they carry them from Mother Earth Products because I can't grow those. But I also, even though we can grow raspberries, we just have this weird relationship with raspberries. We love them. They're our favorite fruit. But we'll get plants that grow great for a while and then all of a sudden they'll up and die. So we got some plants that are finally just coming up on their own again. And I'm like so thrilled because we're going to start growing raspberries again. But having them in freeze-dried form is really nice for making various things like adding flavor to icings, smoothies. We don't do smoothies much, but that's just a suggestion. Like I use I did a recipe on making a homemade banana coconut pineapple bread where I used the freeze-dried pineapple, powdered it up, and made an icing out of that went on top of the bread. I do that one every so often. Same thing with the raspberry rolls that I made. I just kind of created the recipe, and went over really well when I did that. But I sometimes use them for making flavored extracts and also for making cream pies. So banana cream pie and raspberry cream pie. In fact, several years ago, I did a video on making a raspberry cream pie using the freeze-dried raspberries. And also I did one on making raspberry chocolate, same thing there, where I used freeze-dried raspberries, powdered them up, but you could do that with any fruit. So to me, that's a luxury item to have on hand. So I do keep that stuff on hand for if I ever want to make a tasty treat out of those fruits, not so much for snacking on, though they can be used for snacking on as is. And then a few other things would be like, even though I do have a couple of great recipes for making your own homemade crackers, I'll link to one of them down below. I do like to stock up on crackers. And I have, by the way, made some homemade saltines that one of these days, I found the recipe online. One of these days I'll do a video on, but I do tend to stay stocked up on the organic saltine crackers I can get from Vitacost, which used to be the Late July brand, but suddenly you can't find those anymore. So I'm getting a different brand from Vitacost now. And I do basically a subscribe and save. They call it auto ship on there. So you can save a percentage when you go that way. Cold cereals, I also consider a luxury item. Patrick, I don't eat breakfast hardly ever, but I do sometimes like cold cereal as more of a snack with milk. But I do make hot breakfasts such as biscuits and gravies, pancakes, and so on. I even have a recipe, by the way, for a breakfast sausage that you can make out of beef. If you're pork free, you can just use a good venison or beef. In fact, I think I have two different recipes and make a nice breakfast sausage out of those. So I'll link to one of those videos down below. But anyway, these are just examples of what I put up and consider luxury items. And by the way, I also did a video on the crackers and cereal and how I store those for long term. Some of them we just keep in the boxes and we just work through those. But I also have some put up in long-term storage, which I believe I talked about in the video I did where I talked about the kinds of things we put in our off-site long-term food storage. And crackers and cold cereal, we do have some of those in there. And I vacuum seal those up into jars. I'll link to those two videos, the long-term food storage, and then the video I did a couple of years ago, I think, on storing crackers and cereal for long-term. And then also the other video I'll link to is the various ways to vacuum seal. I cover my favorite way, the one that I use all the time. But there are many different ways you can vacuum seal into jars. And vacuum sealing, yes, I vacuum seal nuts. I am not afraid of this. In fact, vacuum sealing the nuts will prevent the fat from going rancid. And I found it to be very effective. I've had nuts stored this way for years without issue. The only ones that went rancid on me were the ones I'd opened up and was working through and then got shoved to the back of the cabinet and I forgot about them and they sat there for a long time. And some of those did go rancid. Not terribly so, but some did in that jar. And that was some Brazil nuts. So anyway, just a few examples of some things you can consider stocking up on, things that you might want to have on hand for your children or your grandchildren or even for yourself, just as long as you're not just chowing down on them all the time, but considering this is something I'm putting away for long term so we can have it when times are tough and we can have something that just brings us joy. The grandbaby's in the other room with Papa and he's getting mad. So I'm going to finish this out. But anyway, share with us down below, what are your favorite luxury items you like to keep in your pantry, just to give everyone else a few more ideas on top of the foods that you grow and can and dehydrate and freeze dry and whatever and put up yourself. It is still nice to have a few of those luxury items on hand. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.